The X-Men have many foes. Everyone from Mr. Sinister, Mystique, to Arcade, there's no shortage of threats to everyone's favorite band of merry mutants. Some occasional antagonists, however, haven't really had beef with all of the X-Men, just a personal conflict every now and then. One such character is a man that's crossed paths with Wolverine on several occasions, Kenichi Harada, better known as the Silver Samurai. Originally created by Steve Gerber and Bob Brown, Silver Samurai, despite being best known as a Wolverine-adjacent X-Men antagonist, actually debuted in issue 111 of Daredevil, sporting a completely different design than the one he's known for today. After that, he'd make some semi-frequent appearances as an antagonist in Marvel team-up books throughout the 70s, with issue 57 in particular giving him the beginnings of the design he'd be known for today. One of those issues also involved him going up against Spider-Man and the 1978 cast of Saturday Night Live, and no, I'm not kidding about that. In his first appearance, he seems to be a traditional swordsman with a strong sense of duty to his clan and preserving its honor. From Marvel Team Up 57 onwards, we'd start getting more information about him sprinkled into his stories, like how his sword can cut through nearly anything, and how it can also disrupt electronics. These recurring appearances in Marvel Team Up and the slow but steadily growing characterization for this seemingly random villain makes a lot more sense when you look at the writer for every one of those Marvel Team Up issues. Chris Claremont, the writer that at that point in time was 4 years deep into his legendary 16-year Uncanny X-Men run. Claremont would continue using the character in other books, including a Spider-Woman story, and Claremont's own spin-off book New Mutants, before finally having him appear in the main Uncanny X-Men book, revealing that he is in fact a mutant. Silver Samurai has the ability to project the tachyon field from his body and focusing the generated energy into an object of his choosing. Not to dive into theoretical physics or anything, but tachyons are generally considered to be a hypothetical particle that travels faster than light. Silver Samurai focuses this energy into his sword, giving him the ability to cut through nearly anything. The only exception being adamantium, which predictably comes into play in his many conflicts with Wolverine. Silver Samurai is the illegitimate son of Shingen Yashida and half-brother of Mariko Yashida, the former being a Japanese crime lord and head of the influential clan Yashida in Japan, and the latter being the former's daughter, and one of Wolverine's biggest love interests. He gets involved in criminal activities to pay off a debt his father owed, which is how he ends up in New York fighting against Daredevil in his debut issue, and Spider-Man and Black Widow in his Marvel team-up appearances. He also had a close working relationship with Viper, better known as the original Madam Hydra, serving as her bodyguard and coming into conflict with heroes like Captain America. He'd also father a son, Shingen Harada, named after Shingen Yashida, who'd become the second Silver Samurai as well. Despite his criminal associations, Silver Samurai prides himself on his sense of honor, and it's perhaps this sense and duty to his clan that slowly steered his shift from being a villain into more of a hero. Most people know of the Disney movie, but a lot of people don't know that Big Hero 6 is an adaptation of a Marvel comic featuring a team of the same name. A team that Silver Samurai was not only a part of, but helped lead as well, being assigned by the Japanese government. Silver Samurai is a character that's only been somewhat sparingly used in media outside of the comics. He was in the second 2013 Wolverine movie, though the character donning the armor there was Shingen Yashida, his father. And also a robot. That was weird. His first appearance in anything outside of the comics, though, was Capcom's X-Men Children of the Atom in 1994, showing up there even before he'd appear in X-Men the Animated Series a little under 2 years later, making him something of a dark horse pick for this game. He's also one of the most interesting characters that Capcom's ever translated into a fighting game character, in that it's one of the only times Capcom's improvised a moveset completely separate from their power set in the comics. While he does use his sword and shuriken in Capcom's fighters as he does in the comics, in Capcom's games, Silver Samurai notably has the ability to enchant his sword with various elemental effects, which affects the properties of his attacks, and in some cases, even his general defense and speed values. He's voiced in all of his Capcom fighter appearances by Yasushi Ikeda, who notably isn't a professional voice actor, but instead a member of Capcom's Sound Division, being one of their programmers. When Marvel initially rejected all of Capcom's original voice recordings for the game's cast, Silver Samurai's was the only one they approved, which I suppose isn't too surprising. However, This does give him the distinction of being the only Marvel character in the entire series with a Japanese voice actor. Despite only having 2 appearances in Capcom's fighting games, there's actually a fair bit to talk about in both appearances, so let's get started. Before Capcom started doing dedicated key art for the characters, starting with X-Men vs. Street Fighter, they used digitized recreations of panels from various comic issues for in-game portrait art. Silver Samurai's Children of the Atom art is taken directly from the splash page at the beginning of issue 22 of X-Men by Fabian Nicieza and Andy Kubert. Silver Samurai is a character that kinda struggles in Children of the Atom. He's unquestionably on the lower end of most tier lists, but he's not destined to always lose. It's just going to be an uphill battle, especially against players familiar with his knowledge checks. Silver Samurai's an interesting character in Children of the Atom. For every cool thing in his favor, there's a weird crippling thing holding him back. He has really good defense values and can survive a little longer than most thanks to that. Between his projectile and his Raimei-ken super, he's really effective at chipping out the opponent. His game plan is pretty simple to understand, even given all of his offensive options. And doubling back to Raimei-ken, it's easily one of the most damaging supers in the game and can be reliably comboed into. But he's slow and a lot of his attacks are easily punished. For whatever reason, all of his attacks can be blocked high, even the ones that look like they should hit low. His specific size and weight make certain combos that don't work on other characters work on him. And Raimei-ken is good, but you're going to need full meter, and that's tricky to build with him. His first move is a shuriken done with a quarter circle forward in punch motion. This attack hits multiple times and can be done in the air, the speed of the shuriken being determined by the strength of the punch button used. The shuriken can also be steered upwards or downwards once thrown, both on the ground and in the air. Be sure how you direct them though, they're liable to whiff if you aim too far up or down. Shuriken are one of the few things he uses in this game that come from the comics, though they're larger and more exaggerated here. He has a lightning legs X special move that can be done by mashing the punch button as well. If you double tap forward during this, he'll start advancing forward as well. This also has a command variant as well though, done with a dragon punch motion and punch. The aforementioned dash input works the same way here as well. From here on out, all of Silver Samurai's moves are X powers that use meter. First, we'll start with Bunshin, done with the quarter circle back in 2 kicks. Silver Samurai will briefly pose and summon multiple shadow clones that perform whatever actions you do on a delay, up to a certain amount of time or after a certain amount of hits. Think Zero Sogenmu in later Capcom fighters. Toki Rai is his first elemental power-up move. This one imbues his attacks with electricity, which seems to add multiple hits to some of his attacks. Toki Hyo is his next one. This one imbues his attacks with ice, and every other hit from an attack will freeze the opponent. It's very similar to Shumagorath's gem ability in Marvel Superheroes if you're more familiar with that game. This is generally the preferred power-up for him since it immensely boosts his combo game. Of course, he gets a fire power-up to round things out as well. This one boosts his damage for a bit. Notably, if you use Bunshin and then use this, it will apply to the clones as well, and you have the opportunity to do massive damage. Good luck having the meter for all that and properly setting it up though. Blink is done with the quarter circle forward and kick. He does a quick teleport in place, avoiding damage entirely during its active frames. It notably has no recovery if grounded, but has a tiny bit if done in the air. It does have its uses getting out of some specific situations. While I'm sure it's probably not the inspiration for this move, Silver Samurai does acquire and utilize a teleportation ring in some of his earliest comic book appearances. His first super move is Cho Shuriken, done with the quarter circle back in 2 punches. He throws out 3 of his shuriken at once, doing respectable chip damage if blocked. Like the standard shuriken, this can also be directed in much the same way. His second super is probably his most well known among players, Raimei Ken, done with a quarter circle forward motion and 2 punches. Silver Samurai raises his katana and several multi-hitting bolts of lightning erupt across the screen, somewhat similarly to Storm's Lightning Storm super. This one is arguably better though. It's active for longer, does absolutely ridiculous chip damage, and the closer you are to the opponent when you activate it, the more damage it does. Though it's easy to prevent because of the lack of lows in his moveset, sweep into Raimei Ken does absolutely absurd damage. Silver Samurai's stage is Samurai Shrine. This is a forest shrine in Japan set against the backdrop of what I'm assuming is Mount Fuji on a clear night. In the center of the stage is a large multi-armed statue nestled between a large torii gate. These are a traditional Japanese gate usually seen at the entrance of Shinto shrines and are meant to mark the transition between the regular living world and the realm of the sacred. They can be seen in many fighting game stages that incorporate Japanese shrines, though Samurai Showdown's Gairyu Ayo might be the most recognizable within the genre. Very highly recommend watching Babe Ruthless's video on that stage's history within fighting games if this topic in particular interests you. There's 2 geisha, one standing on each side of the statue, playing the shamisen, a 3-string traditional Japanese instrument, itself derived from the sanshin, a Chinese instrument. There's what I assume is a chajin, or tea master, pacing back and forth. I imagine they want to start a traditional tea ceremony, but the fight is probably getting in their way. Also in front of the statue are 2 rock pillars and a saisen, a wooden box meant to hold offerings people make to deities. If a character gets thrown or knocked down in proximity to either of these elements, they'll shatter. There's also several ninjas standing in the background, intermittently disappearing and reappearing every now and then. Wouldn't blame you for thinking these are members of the Hand, as they're probably the first ninja clan you think of when you think of Marvel ninjas. That said, at this point in the comics, Silver Samurai and the Yashida clan were actually opposed to the Hand's growing influence in Japan. They'd eventually broker a deal. The criminal sect of the Yashida clan would become assimilated into the Hand, allowing the rest of the clan to purge their name of any illegal affairs, and letting both the Hand and Clan Yashida coexist peacefully. Over the course of the fight, as the rounds progress, a fire starts in the background and grows as the match continues, the glow from it even reflecting off the bottom of the torii gates. This stage's theme was composed by Hideki Okugawa, who also did Cyclops and Magneto's stage themes for this game and also contributed to other Capcom soundtracks like Street Fighter Alpha 3, Dead Rising, and Resident Evil 5. Of course, his biggest legacy was as co-composer for Street Fighter 3 New Generation alongside Yuki Iwai, and the sole composer and arranger for their follow-ups, Second Impact and Third Strike. This is a pretty upbeat song overall. The instrumentation, as with pretty much any Okugawa track, is top-notch, though it's evident that he really loved using electric guitar samples in his X-Men work, since they're prominent in all of his compositions in this game. Here are Silver Samurai's colors. And here's Silver Samurai's ending. Alright, comic book time. There's a ton of characters in X-Men books that end up woefully underused, and these days, Silver Samurai is one of them, most of his prominence coming from the 80s and early 90s. His debut story in Daredevil was interesting, if only for its completely different costume, and the fact that it also informs the events of Chris Claremont stories using the character in Marvel Team-Up issues 57, 74, as well as issues 83 through 85. Though they're spread out, these Claremont penned issues in particular form kind of a mini-arc involving Spider-Man, Black Widow, and Silver Samurai, though Nick Fury later gets involved too. He shows up early on in Wolverine's original solo series as well, in issues 2 and 3, as well as issues 56 and 57 later down the line. Issue 57 in particular is an important one for Silver Samurai, as the events of that issue set up his eventual rise to leader of the Yashida clan. The aforementioned Fabian Nicieza and Andy Kubert story from issues 21 through 23 of X-Men, and that's X-Men with no adjectives at the beginning of the title, is worth a look as well. This is more of a Psylocke story, but Silver Samurai is dragged into it as he's protecting one of the people that knows what's going on with their body swapping mystery at that point in time. The original Big Hero 6 miniseries from 1998 incorporates him in a more heroic fashion as a part of the Japan-based superhero team. The first issue of Jason Aaron's Wolverine run has a fantastic backup story titled The Last Stand of the Silver Samurai, depicting the Yashida compound being attacked by a massive ninja, and his ill-fated defense against said invaders, reflecting on his life over the course of the story, before finally succumbing to his injuries. It's a story with some incredible art by Jason Latour that I highly recommend. He also shows up later in that run as well, his soul stuck in hell. He was resurrected in the Krakoa era, though he was used sparingly, even sitting out the Ten of Swords X-Men event, an omission that even forms the basis of a Wolverine tie-in issue for the story. That said, my personal favorite story to feature him is a 3-issue arc during the early 80s during Claremont's Uncanny X-Men run. Being from that incredible run should already tell you it's a good story, but it also has art done by one of the best artists to ever work on X-Men despite only penciling a few issues. It informs much of his relationship with Wolverine, and is also one of the first big dives we get into Wolverine's history with Japan. This video's comic book recommendation is issues 172 through 174 of Uncanny X-Men by Chris Claremont and Paul Smith. The story starts off in Japan with Wolverine, who's been away from the team for a bit, welcoming the X-Men into the home of his fiancée, Mariko Yashida, the new head of the Yashida clan, following the death of Patriarch Shingen Yashida and Mariko's father. Wolverine and Mariko are set to wed in just a few days, and Logan figures he should have his newfound family there for the occasion as well, including the newest member, Rogue, who Wolverine has issue with being on the team. Unfortunately, at least one person isn't happy about this impending union and seeks to stop it by any means necessary, the Silver Samurai. He and Viper set in motion a plan to stop Mariko's ascension to head of the Yashida clan, with the Silver Samurai believing that he's the one whose birthright is leading the clan, starting with a trap to poison the X-Men to keep them from interfering. Thanks to Yukio, an ally of Wolverine's, and Storm, who just narrowly avoided being poisoned by the trap, they managed to initially stop this. Though with Storm drained after the fight and most of the other X-Men in intensive care, it's up to Wolverine, whose healing factor managed to keep him mostly intact, and Rogue, who was somewhat protected by the Kree physiology she absorbed from Ms. Marvel, to take the fight to the Silver Samurai. Rogue and Wolverine tear across the city looking for the Samurai and Viper, only to find that they too have been duped, and things become a race against time to stop them from getting to the X-Men and Mariko. I want to specifically highlight the outstanding penciling from artist Paul Smith here. Smith is one of the more beloved X-Men artists out there, despite the fact that he only worked on 10 issues total of Uncanny X-Men. But man, does he make these issues count. The fight scene between Wolverine and Silver Samurai in issue 173 is honestly one of the best drawn in any Marvel comic if I'm being completely honest, punctuated by Smith's clean, sleek line work. And that's to say nothing of this issue's cover being influential itself, inspiring the posing for future Marvel covers as well as being a popular poster and standee pose for years to come. Or the fact that this issue also features the debut of Storm's iconic Mohawk design, also designed by Smith. It's not just a good Silver Samurai story, it's just a good-ass X-Men story in general. One of the best single issues of the book if I'm being quite honest. It's absolutely worth the read. After a long absence, Silver Samurai returns in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and of all the characters directly returning from Children of the Atom, he's perhaps the character that got the most new stuff in their transition to Marvel 2. For one, he has the most hyper combos of any character in the entire series, having a grand total of 7, though he does lose his blink evasion move in the process. Moreover, his elemental power-ups return from Children of the Atom, and their utilities actually been expanded on in a meaningful way. Silver Samurai gets a surprising amount of additional tools in Marvel 2, but how much does it help him? He still has great defense, he has low hitting attacks now, and some surprisingly potent high-low mix-ups he can do as a result of that. He's one of the best characters at dealing chip damage in the game, even more so than before. Raimei-ken is still an outstanding super, and part of the reason why is because it absolutely blows up assist calls. Like Children of the Atom though, he's very meter dependent. His mobility isn't too great, and his hitboxes in this game are kind of a tragedy compared to Children of the Atom. So about those hitboxes, let's take a look at the hitboxes for his normals in Children of the Atom. They mostly make sense, right? They're not hilariously disjointed like some of Psylocke's are, and could honestly use a little more range, but they're functional at the least. Now let's take a look at the hitboxes for those same normals in Marvel 2. Yeah. So, for one, his hitboxes are not only a lot smaller and thinner, but also don't match the animation at all. This one makes at least a tiny bit of sense since it's a sweep and it actually hits low this time. Maybe they just didn't have the manpower to redraw a more fitting animation here. But then you look at his standing normals and the hitboxes for those are really oddly placed too, and nowhere near as sensibly implemented as in Children of the Atom. It's weird. One normal that was properly blessed though is his jumping heavy kick, which can function as an instant overhead when done low enough, giving him some fun high-low mix-ups when landing. Combining these mix-ups with an assist like Tron's projectile assist can deal over half a life bar of damage to most characters with just a single bread and butter combo. Back in Children of the Atom, he had the ability to crouch cancel his standing heavy punch, though it doesn't usually find too much practical application there. This is possible in Marvel 2 as well, though it does have use here. You can crouch cancel the end frames into a dash, and then immediately combo light kick into heavy punch if you do it fast enough. From there, you can loop the sequence in the corner until Undizzy kicks in, effectively giving him a corner infinite. I'm ass and out of practice, so I can only get a couple reps at the moment, but this should generally give you the basic gist of things. Silver Samurai retains his elemental power-ups here, now being install supers with a properly displayed timer. However, there's much more to these power-ups here than in Children of the Atom, and they now affect more than just his normals. First up is his ice install. This no longer freezes the enemy with every other hit like it does in Children of the Atom. Instead, this move lowers the damage Silver Samurai does by about half, but in exchange, the amount of damage he can take skyrockets, and he gets super armor on top of that. With this active, Hyakuda Tsudo has a faster startup and his shuriken also have less recovery, in addition to the latter dealing 3 hits instead of 6. Most notably, he gets access to a new hyper combo in this mode, Hyoga Jin. This one hits low, and if not blocked correctly, freezes the opponent outright. This one doesn't do all that much regular damage, but it does deal a pretty good amount of chip, so it's worth it for that utility alone. This and all of his elemental power-ups can also be stacked up to 3 times for 3 bars in total, and this has some additional effects. Powering it up fully gives Silver Samurai hyper armor for a short time, and restores his damage values to normal. Check out how much damage Hyoga Jin does with a fully powered ice install. His fire install is now done with a quarter circle forward and light kick. This one isn't used often by most people, and for an understandable reason. His damage in this form is boosted like in Children of the Atom, but unlike that game, the amount of damage he takes is also amplified, making this the riskiest of the elemental installs. The startup of Hyakuda Tsudo is increased in this mode, while its recovery is reduced. His normals now deal chip damage in this mode, and his shuriken super also knocks down now as well. Like with the ice install, he also gets a new hybrid combo, Guden Jin. This does a ton of damage, but if you whiff, it could spell doom for him since the fire install reduces his defense, and this super's -1 block. If you stack this install 3 times, his defense goes back to normal. His lightning install is perhaps the most reworked of the 3, though he doesn't get a new hybrid combo for this one. He attacks faster in this mode, but also takes more damage, though nowhere near as much as he does with the fire buff active. He also gets the ability to do full magic series chains on the ground from lights to heavies, something he's incapable of doing outside of this mode. His shuriken also only hits once instead of multiple times, and he notably gets the ability to use Cho's shuriken in the air during this install as well. Stacking this 3 times returns his defense to normal. Silver Samurai gets access to Raimei Ken in his default mode as well as during his lightning install, and it's just as good here as it was in Children of the Atom, if not better. This works as a fantastic full screen punish for assist calls, and will likely have them bleeding since it does a ton of damage to point characters, let alone assists. Like Rogue, he also has a hybrid combo exclusive to THCs, Hyper Hayakata Tudo. Initiating a team hybrid combo with his Hayakata Tudo assist selected will initiate this. Speaking of, that's his first assist. His second assist is Shuriken. His third assist is his launcher. Here are all of his colors. Silver Samurai is definitely one of the deeper X-Men pulls in Marvel vs. Capcom, but not an unwelcome one. He's probably the character Capcom freestyled with the most outside of maybe Sentinel, and I appreciate all of the ways they made him distinct, even if he doesn't end up the greatest character overall. He shows up as a Heroes and Heralds card in Marvel 3, and also showed up in an episode of Wolverine and the X-Men, as well as an unvoiced cameo in Season 1 of X-Men 97. He's also in LEGO Marvel Superheroes as a playable character as well. If Marvel vs. Capcom ever comes back, he's probably not going to be in it if we're being honest. But what's that one saying again? Don't be sad that it's over, be glad that it happened? That's going to do it for this video. As always, thanks for watching, and a big thanks to the patrons that support the channel. Buster Wolf Girl, Mentasmic, Jordan Cologne, Juicebox Joints, Daniel Jenkins, Sup or SUP, please tell me which one you prefer, Kyle Nichols, Night Warrior X4, Shadow72X, Sonic X Ethan, Speedy, and Snacker Fork. Your support really means a lot. That said, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.